Hi guys, in this tutorial we're going to add a bit more complex logic to our blueprint that we created last time, which was for the platform. And the event graph just states that we should rotate locally our two platforms like that. So now we're going to rotate them only if the player is close to them. And the way to do that is going to be by adding some stuff to the blueprint. Let's first of all bring these down, make sure they're reasonably far away. So they should only be rotated when the player gets close to each of them. So let's have a look at our platform. Now we want to do this still, but we want some condition before we can do that. It's like writing an if statement. If player is close, then do this. But instead of executing code from top to bottom in a programming language, in Blueprint you're executing these actions from left to right. First of all, we need a variable that holds the reference to the player. So if you think from the code perspective, that's pretty much what you do anyway. You create a variable, you add name of that variable, and also the type. Now, to create a variable, I've done this too quickly, didn't I? Let's just close or delete this thing. So in order to create a variable, you go to this submenu or the tab, and then click plus variable. That creates a new variable, and it allows you to rename it immediately. And we'll put player because we want to store the reference to or our player to us. And here you can define the variable type here on the left. And the type is actor because every object in the game is an actor. And our player is also an actor. We also want to turn on instance editable. That means it's going to be visible to the editor so that we can assign a value in our details pane by clicking that thing. And well, first of all, I need to compile this and save. Then it should be available here, just under the transform section. And then we can select our player. First person character. Now this is not an ideal way of doing that because, as you can imagine, the more platforms you spawn, you will need to assign the player reference to them as well, and to each of the platform. So there is a way to do this dynamically, but this is the easiest way in this simple tutorial, so we're happy with that. I have two platforms, 2 is fine for testing, and both of them have the reference to the first person character in the player variable. Let's go here to the event graph of our platform blueprint. So what we want is essentially some kind of an if statement that checks if player is close. And to do that, let's just left click and drag your get player. That is how we obtain a reference, how we use that variable in our event graph, essentially. And from there, we can drag a node and see what are we getting? We need location, get actor location, there we go. Returns the location of the component of this actor. I'm assuming this returns a Wordle location. Well, yeah, because local location is 0, isn't it? So that should be a world location. In which case, we can do the same with ourselves, as in the self actor, or this actor, in which we're writing the blueprint script. So get location. For actor. There we go. Get actor location, and target is self. So we have the location of the platform, of the instance of the platform. We have the location of our player, and what we want is to figure out the distance between them. Let's try distance. Nice. So when you drag a node to place in the search bar, if you type something that you're thinking, it's usually helpful. Sometimes it's called something different if you're coming from a different engine, for example. Like the map data structure in UE4, it's weird. Like instead of put, you have add, and instead of get, you have, I think, find or something. So chances are what you're looking for is there, but it may be called something different. So just look around. Get actor location, return value goes here, that return value goes here, and we now have a distance. And the return value is float, so we can compare it to a value. Shall we say if the distance is less than, yep, less than or equal to, so you can see that if I type less, it gives me the options. Let's try less than or equal to 300. I don't actually have a feel for 300, like how far it is, but we'll see. So if this is 300, or if these are, let's do some housekeeping first before we proceed, like, so these things don't overlap or something. There we go, that's a bit better. So if that distance is less than, then we'll need a branch. Branch is what UE4 calls an if statement in Blueprint. And using a branch, using a condition in the branch, you can then do something when that condition is true, and similarly you can do something when it's false. I'm going to disconnect by right-clicking the arrow and breaking the link. On event tick, what I want to do, I don't know where to place this. Let's place it here. I want to go into this branch. We want to execute this branch, which in turn figures this out. And if we are close to the player, do the rotation thing. If not, then don't do anything. Compile and save. Let's test it. So the good news is they don't rotate, which means something's happening. Let's get close to one of the platforms while staying far away from the other. Nice. So that's how close 300 units is. If I move further away, it doesn't do anything. If I get close, it rotates. And because we did it in the Blueprint editor, it's saved as a Blueprint script, which means that all instances should behave similarly or exactly the same. There we go. Cool. So that's what we got so far. And that should be enough for this slightly more complex example of a blueprint. And in this tutorial, we looked at how to add a variable. So I suggest that you play around with variables a bit more and try adding different types of variables. Then we can just drag over to get a reference to that variable so we can use it in our event graph. We can then call various functions on these variables, pretty much like in any programming language. So get actor location, we also call the same function, but this time on self, like this dot get actor location is what you would do in Java. In C++, you would do this arrow notation, get actor location. Then we called the distance function, which takes in two vectors. So these are inputs, this is an output. We use the output to then check if that output is less than or equal to 300, which gave us a Boolean. We put the Boolean through a branch, which is like an if statement. That if statement gave us true or false outputs, which we could then hook up to something. And event tick is the thing that drives the entire big function. So you can think of that being a single function, and the event tick is the driver of that thing. It's like an update loop tick. Okay, that's enough for recap, and in the next tutorial we'll do even more complex stuff. See you then. Thanks for watching.